You are watching the Post Up Show. I'm Cyrus, that's Kaunda. How you doing, Kay?
I'm good, sir. How you doing?
Excellent, excellent. Maybe as good as those who are leading in the All-Star voting. Fan voting second returns are out, and we're going to be talking about that. Kaunda, we love All-Star. We always talk about it. It's one of those, it's our favorite time of the year outside of maybe the Christmas games. And it's great to see people getting rewarded for all of their consistency and their ability to perform. But sometimes even just the love that they get when we look at some of the returns, like when you see the likes of Klay Thompson. Now, I know before we go into the actual returns themselves, we always talk about the fact that All-Star is really about just how important the fans find the games. Do you feel it's something that they should be doing this year anyway? Or do you think, maybe just have the voting and maybe no game?
Look, Cyrus, because we find ourselves in a very tricky time. We've got this pandemic, we've got this virus going around that we really don't fully understand. And what's the good thing about All-Star is also the bad thing about having All-Star, in that you take the best of the best and you put them in one location for a whole weekend. And obviously some fans might be there. And I know they've got their individual 30 bubbles, if you will, but they're very clever about how, when they meet and the protocols. But now you're taking the best players from the league, as selected by us, the fans, and you're putting them in the same place at the same time for a whole weekend.
Yeah.
So, Cyrus, I find it quite concerning. I find it quite tricky. I would rather maybe we voted like we have, and then we know who would have been an All-Star, but nobody plays. But then again, Cyrus, if you take it back to last year, from March to July, there were no games. And then even after that, there was the bubble. And even after we've come back, there have been no fans, which means certain income-generating avenues for the NBA have been literally bleeding money. They've been making bills, actually been losing money in the process. If you think about some of them, there's been no in-court activations. There've been no arena activity. There's really been little but the games, if you will, Cyrus, right?
Exactly.
We love the games, especially for us who are watching them from a distance. But Cyrus, it's quite a tricky thing. You take how many? 30 of the top players from the league, and you put them in the same place at the same time. And
it could be a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely, Cyrus. If anything goes wrong, it could be a recipe for disaster. But I also understand how the NBA can feel like us fans have been deprived of a lot of things already. So they would rather we actually do get an All-Star showpiece. Because you got to also remember, Cyrus, the All-Star doesn't start getting planned in Feb. They start planning for All-Star from the end of the previous All-Star.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that's been put in motion that if they don't have it, it could be problematic financially.
Exactly. And I totally agree with you. And I think this whole thing it seems to be a really tough exercise, because on the one hand, the NBA have to do it because, it's a great income generator for them, but it also helps with the fan engagement, because in essence, it almost feels as if the season's just going on. Fans haven't necessarily been engaged so much. And now this is a chance for the fans to have a say. And I think that's always something that we enjoy as fans. So this is what the first sort of second returns are looking like at the moment. And right now, leading the way is none other than LeBron James, a guy we've only heard about in the last season and a bit. But when you look at it, just how close Kevin Durant is in terms of the numbers, you realize they're the top two guys in both of the East and Western Conference. So it's really quite a nice breakup of looking at who the superstar performers are and the way the fans see them. Now, we're going to have a breakdown in terms of the East and West, but I think that when we look at it, and let's maybe start with the Western Conference front court, LeBron James is really just the king of all kings right now. But right behind him in voting is Nikola Jokic, who has been fantastic. And then Kawhi Leonard behind him, with Anthony Davis, who's just picked up an injury, fourth in the voting there. Now, that sort of Lakers combination, and in fact, it's interesting to see that the Lakers teams, the Los Angeles teams have got, 4 guys in the top 5, is really telling in terms of who seems to be dominating in the West. So do you think the fan voting is really showing just how good these teams are? Or is it just that big markets tend to pull big numbers and then you have Nikola Jokic?
No, Cyrus, first of all, I think those voting numbers speak volumes as to who's performing and who the fans are really loving. Obviously, this is the era of King James. I mean, obviously, not just him, it's him, Steph, KD, Clay, to some other an extent, James Harden as well. You know, this is their era. So I'm actually not surprised that the numbers are looking how they're looking. LeBron James is the face of the NBA at the moment. So, rightfully so, he's at the top. But closely behind him, we'll talk about this guy later, is Kevin Durant. But let's keep it to the West Side. Nikola Jokic has been balling his socks off, Cyrus. He's one of my favorite big men in the league, besides Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think if you were to ask me, right behind one Anthony Davis would be Nikola Jokic. But in terms of performance, Nikola Jokic, Cyrus, he shows up every night. I've never watched a game where I think Nikola is having an off night today. He's always there. And he's always performing, putting up great numbers. Also, basically like a walking double-double, if you will.
Yeah.
And then...
close to a triple-double most nights.
Most nights, yes, Cyrus. And then you talk about Kawhi Leonard. Unmistakably a top-notch player, Cyrus. A multiple championship winner, a multiple finals MVP winner. Cyrus, we can't argue with those numbers. One person that I'm surprised is getting all the love because he's had quite a rocky start to the season is Anthony Davis himself, who's missed a couple of games due to injuries, and right now he's also, he aggravated his Achilles tendon, so he's sitting out for a while. But still, if you look at the end of last season, Cyrus, Anthony Davis was part of the heart and soul of the Lakers. If it's not LeBron James, it's Anthony Davis. I think if you asked me who should have gotten that MVP trophy, I actually thought at one point they should have made two and given one to Anthony Davis.
You're talking about the Finals MVP.
Finals MVP.
I mean, he was that good. He was that good, and I think that through the playoffs, he really gave a heck of a lot. And I mean, like that one 3-point shot over Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals just showed how good Anthony Davis had been in the previous season. And it was a tough season with the bubble and all of that stuff. But I do think, though, that these returns really also show just how important your performances can be. And if you are doing well in a tough conference like the West, the fans will see that and they'll give you the love. But what's interesting for me is the likes of Carmelo Anthony making this list, where you're like, okay, Melo's been good, but all-star level good? Well, I don't know. But it's great to see youngsters like Zion Williamson getting some props. Even Christian Wood getting some props is really great to see from a Houston Rockets perspective.
Cyrus, Christian Wood has been balling. He's been putting up some great performance in Houston. Another person that I'm liking the fact that his name is showing up there is one Brandon Ingram. I really like. I've been a Brandon Ingram fan since he came into the league and when he was at the Lakers. And I think, Cyrus, from a Carmelo Anthony point of view, I think you remember he spent one season without playing for a single NBA franchise, and we actually thought he might step away from the game.
It was done.
He came back. Then he came back, and I think it was OKC, then Houston. Was it Houston, then OKC? Then now he finds himself.
Well, I guess that run in terms of OKC and Houston, he just wasn't looking good at all.
Then he comes back and sort of like finds a second wind in Portland with the Trailblazers, Cyrus. And I think he's always been that likable person. He's got a lot of fans. His off-court antics aside, Cyrus, he's always been that cool guy. Melo looks like you can approach him and ask him for an autograph, and it won't be a big thing. He's one of those guys.
You might have when he was in Joburg, but
no, I definitely did, Cyrus, and he did. He signed an autograph, and he treated a whole lot of us media people to a great dinner at high establishment, but let's not go there now. Now I see why you'd vote for Melo. But I get it. But I get it. I mean, people love him. He's one of those guys. We've got to move across to the guards because this is also really interesting to see from the returns perspective. Steph Curry just absolutely obliterating the guard section. I mean, he's really the
best shooting guard in the Western Conference from a fan perspective. You know, people are really seeing what he's doing and they love it. Then behind him is Luka Doncic with Damian Lillard in third. I'm really keen to see the likes of Donovan Mitchell get a little bit more recognition, because for only, 479,000 votes, that he's basically 2 million votes behind Luka Doncic. It's insane. It's absolutely insane, considering that I suppose Doncic is that good. But then, you know, it's going to be, I hope to see guys like Donovan Mitchell get named to an all-star team, because their performances deserve it. The Utah Jazz are one of the best teams in the NBA in its totality. And the run that they've been on from a winning perspective is just really impressive. So from the guard lineup, and I want you to look at what's happening here. Obviously, the love for Klay Thompson, I think, is a bit of a misnomer. I always look at Alex Caruso's name when these things come up and think of Zaza Pachulia getting loads of votes. But who do you think from this is likely to perhaps maybe not become a starter? I think the two starter positions are Steph and Doncic. That almost goes without saying. But who else do you think has a chance of becoming an all-star from you?
Cyrus, this is a great one, because first of all, the top two guards, I love these guys. Steph Curry has revolutionized that three-point shot, Cyrus. We can't deny what Steph has contributed to the sport and to the league. Besides a KD, if you ask me who is another pure scorer, it's Steph Curry. From the logo, from the parking area, from his mansion, wherever it is, he's making the free. They will go through that. I don't know how it happens. He must have come to, when he came to Uganda sometime, some years back.
Nothing but nets.
I think they gave him some muti there, and it's just been working.
It might be the same tea that Museveni is drinking.
Cyrus, I've been watching the NBA since the 80s. I have never seen, give or take a Larry Bird or a Ray Allen, I have never seen this in my entire life.
Yeah, even the likes of Reggie Miller.
Reggie Miller as well, sorry. Reggie Miller, yes. But Luka Doncic, Cyrus, that's another undeniable talent. He came out of the EuroLeague, he was a champion, came to the NBA, fit in like a glove. I didn't see much, adjustments taking place. Obviously, it's 3 steps instead of 2 for the layup. I think that's the only thing, and I think it works to his advantage. Like, I got an extra step, when I'm going to
a half step,
a bit of a half step there. So, Cyrus, the top 2 positions, I think they're locked. Now, I love what you said about Donovan Mitchell, because with him being a key part of that number 1 team at the moment, it shows that he's performing. It shows that he's working. And I think I'd love him to be an all-star for definite. And as well,
one of your favorites,
Donovan Mitchell. First, before, because I was going to say the Joker's partner, and then Donovan Mitchell really escaped my brain. So Donovan Mitchell, I really want to see this young man play in the All-Star game. He's a great talent. He's not afraid to grab a rebound, grab that ball, put it on the hardwood, drive it to the hoop, shoot a 3.
He makes tough shots.
Great talent. And he makes them tough shots, and he's got that clutch gene. But one of my favorites, number 12 at the Memphis Grizzlies.
Ja Morant, your favorite. He doesn't know it, but he's Zambian.
He doesn't know it, but he's Zambian. Former Rookie of the Year. Cyrus, I love the look of Ja Morant. Fearless, and he just wants to ball. And I like the fact he's at that. They're really the Grizzlies. They're a grimy team. They put in work. They grind it out. And he's that kind of a player as well, because he dunks. I think him and Vince Carter are sort of like cut from the same cloth. He had the skinny part of the cloth, while Vince had the cloth.
I'm just gonna stop you there. You are just making Vince Carter out to be somebody who's just struggling for weight, or rather, sorry, the other way around in terms of Ja Morant. From the Eastern Conference, Kevin Durant obviously just miles ahead, but who had been the captain in the previous years was Giannis Antetokounmpo, and him and Joel Embiid, there's only a couple 100,000 votes separating them. So when you look at it, and it's great to see so many African players starring in the Eastern Conference front court, Joel Embiid, Antetokounmpo, and then Bam Adebayo, the Nigerian American. Seeing them in that top 10 is just superb. Now, KD is obviously going to be a lock. You've got the other two front court spots. Those also look like they're going to be Antetokounmpo and Joel Embiid. Do you think those are, I mean, the fans are getting it right. From my perspective, it looks like they're nailed on in terms of the starters.
No, Cyrus, KD basically has got that top spot on lock unless something just happens. But I think with also Giannis having been the captain the last two All-Star games, right? And I think I can lock him in the second spot as well. And Joel Embiid, he's just that guy. You enjoy watching him playing at All-Star. It allows him to goof off a little bit more than usual, but he still puts up those great performances because at his heart, at heart, he is a baller. And obviously he uses All-Star to sort of flex and do a bit clowning around a little bit, but at the end he will ball. So that's great. But also glad to see Bam Adebayo there. Didn't he recently win a skills challenge?
Yes, he did. Bam Adebayo is a really impressive guy.
So we need him to be in the All-Star game. He really needs to bring it, and I think we really need him there. Julius Randle, I think he should climb up the ladder, Cyrus. He has been putting on great performances.
He's been impressive.
In New York. I think when saying a rebirth, I know it's a big cliched statement, but there is a rebirth of Julius Randle.
Yeah.
I have seen Julius Randle before when he was just young and he was at the LA Lakers, and now I'm seeing him again in New York. Maybe he loves the big markets and they allow him to shine. I don't know, but I've seen a rebirth.
He's doing well. He's doing well. Look, I think that when I look at this list, one of the others that I'd love to see there, and I think the Boston players are the ones that I think should be part of the All-Star reckoning, so the likes of Jason Tatum. And when we go to the guard numbers now in the East, the likes of Jaylen Brown, it's great to see him getting so many votes. He's, like 800,000 or just below 800,000 votes behind James Harden. But he could actually be one of those who gets chosen as one of the All-Stars. Bradley Beal and Kyrie Irving seem to be leading the way fairly comfortably, though Harden and Irving could swap. But for me, Bradley Beal being an All-Star is one of the key things I want to see. And then Zach LaVine, who's been superb this season. He's just been so good. So, when I look at it from an All-Star perspective, for me, the guards, Bradley Beal's got to be one of the starters. Then it's either Kyrie or Harden. I'd probably go Kyrie just because his game is just so incredible. Though Harden has been really instrumental in getting a couple of wins recently. But in terms of the players that could make it, and I feel should, LaVine is on that list. Jaylen Brown, I'd love to see him as an All-Star, and then we'll take it from there. Do you think that those are the kind of players who should be front and center in the East?
Yeah, I think the top guys to me definitely should be there. Kyrie, Bradley Beal has proven that he's All-Star worthy. Kyrie, perennial All-Star. James Harden, perennial All-Star. But Cyrus, I might go left, and I'm not going too far left because I know you're going to agree with me.
Yeah.
One youngster that I want to see in the All-Star game, and I'll use that word youngster, is Trae Young. Cyrus, he's been doing great stuff in ATL. I love the look of that youngster. I think he is the future of Atlanta. He's definitely the person that should continue to team around. And I would like to see him as an All-Star. I mean, I've seen him play in the Rising Star Challenge, and he's been great. And I think it's time for him to take part in the main attraction, because he's old enough and he's earned his stripes, Cyrus. But other than that, I like Jaylen Brown. I remember he was here for Basketball Without Borders and the Africa game, the final Africa game. Very nice guy. No, I think it was the second Africa game, I think. I spoke to him. He was here, and we had an interview, and he was such a great guy to speak to. And I realized sometimes why these people get fans, because they're such personable people. Him and Harrison Barnes were very down to earth, and we had a nice chat there at the American school. But anyway, Cyrus, Jason Tatum also deserving. I mean, what more can I say? I can literally, if I could make all those guys start, I would make them start. But I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing with the top three. I'm not arguing with the top three. The top three is solid, Cyrus. Solid.
Yeah. I agree with you, and I think that the problem really is there are only so many spots. A basketball team has 5 guys, 2 guards, 3 front court, so you want to fill it out that way. I do think that an important thing, and remember, Trae Young is an All-Star. He was an All-Star last season. Him and Luka played in the 2020 game. I think that we have to see the evolution of some of these newer players, and the likes of Jaylen Brown have missed out in the past and they need to be there. The likes of CJ McCollum, we have to see him in an all-star game. So it's really important for me to see those guys who've been playing well get rewarded. We're going to have to leave it there, Kaunda. You know how we do on this show. But everybody, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share, comment. Tell everybody about what's happening on the Post-Up Show, because we love basketball pretty much as you do, and we want you to enjoy the game till every last drop of it is finished. Till next time, thank you.